Welcome, everybody, to Wall Street Reporter's next Superstock CEO live chat. We have with us again Dr. Issam Hamza, CEO of CloudMD, DOCRF over the counter, DOC on the TSX venture. Dr. Hamza, welcome back.
Thank you for having us again.
I'm glad you were able to make it. After you had this, getting your prospectus filed, everything squared away. So actually, let's jump into yet a lot of news. We're going to get into all that. The first thing is we have a lot of new people in the audience. The audience for the stock has really grown substantially in the last couple of weeks. So for anybody new, can you give us a snapshot of what exactly CloudMD does in the telemedicine e-health space?
Yeah, I mean, at a very high level, without taking, again, half an hour just to explain our company, really the idea is to revolutionize the way healthcare is delivered. And from the traditional, brick and mortar where you're a patient and you have to wait until Monday morning and you have to call in and try to get through, and then you wait a few days to see the doctor, and then you take a day off of work, or you drag your kids out of school and you go to the waiting room and you wait an hour and a half and you see them for 5 minutes. And you take the prescription and you do the same thing again for the prescription or for the specialist. The whole idea is using technology as the great equalizer and making a very patient-centric model, meaning that the patient is in the middle, and now we provide the full ecosystem to that patient, and they're part of the team. So it's a team-based, integrated healthcare approach, and it provides a better outcome. So that means providing a platform that's seamless to the doctors and the specialists and the counselors and the pharmacists and so on to connect to you, so that they can see people in person or they can see them virtually, and it's seamless for them. It means it's one platform, one electronic medical record, one patient portal. And for you as a patient, same thing, one login. You get to see all these different parts of your healthcare team, and they're all working together for the first time to provide better care for you. And so we have both the B2B side, where we provide the platform to those companies and those doctors and those clinicians and so on in the ecosystem. But we also have a B2C side where patients can download the app and see one of our providers as well on demand or with appointments. And we provide full service concierge type of care as well. So it really is the future of healthcare delivery for everybody around the world. It provides better outcomes. And it's much more kind of intuitive, integrative, and efficient. And so you get the buy-in from everybody, from the patient to the doctors to the government regulators, because it just works for everybody.
I mean, so really, again, you're kind of at the forefront of this, digital transformation of healthcare. I mean, it's going to completely change over the next, months. I mean, literally months. It's not years. It's 6, 12 months. Mm-hmm. I think part of your strategy, part of the growth strategy, it seems, or in terms of driving that adoption, it seems like is these acquisitions. Is that? I mean, like, what can you give us an update? You've announced a bunch of them. Like, what role does that play?
It's a major role. So I mean, you get organic growth, and then you have the acquisitions as well. So we're incredibly well financed. You mentioned kind of the prospectus that finally went through. And so we're able to do this presentation today.
Literally 15 minutes.
Literally, yes. I was watching the other presenter. Yeah, absolutely. And so, we are incredibly well funded. I think we have north of 30 million in the bank right now. We've been very successful for our acquisitions in kind of a hotly contested market where these companies we're acquiring are believing in our mission as well, and they're joining us as team members, which is really important to us. We don't buy assets to tuck in and fire everybody. We're bringing in leaders in their space, their verticals, to kind of lead ahead that division for us. So from the refunction, which is the physio, occupational rehab, mental health acquisition, where they're going to be leaders in that expansion across North America, to Snap Clarity, the mental health, to the addition to Karen Adams this morning, who's a world leader in her space. With mental health.
I want to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just announced it. Again, we're incredibly excited. We have an incredible team. I mean, again, just another addition, world-class person who has experience, real life experience, and has been successful in the mental health space in North America, has proven who they are and what they do. but been very successful on the insurance and private side as well. Again, something we don't know very well, and that's why we need to bring this in to bring that part of our business up to expansion. And when I say, I think I said it on the last broadcast, and I mean it, is that we may be very soon, if not already, the first company that provides a full service care to the whole person, meaning that both mental and physical health, healthcare, both public and private healthcare. And so that's an incredibly attractive solution for, let's say, insurance companies and corporations and governments who can do a one-stop shop instead of having multiple vendors providing this to patients, where you have to have one for the public system, one for private, one for mental health, one for physical. And that old siloed approach doesn't work. I mean, we know that. That's historically what you get now when you go to a family doctor and you see a family doctor and they don't talk to the specialist or the counselor or the pharmacist. You get the siloed approach. What we're talking about is a whole team-based approach, where now when someone has an injury after a car accident, it's not just physical. A lot of it's mental. They need counseling and they need help with rehab so they can get out of, so they can recover a lot better as well. So you can't separate those things, right? And so we're going to be able to provide that one-stop shop, and really that's what our focus is. It's that whole full ecosystem for that whole person on the ground.
Okay, so it seems like you've like a lot of these acquisitions you've been kind of like assembling a puzzle. So is the final, like, what stage are we at right now? Is the final piece in, or what?
No, I mean, there's never a dull moment here. Basically, no, we have an incredibly strong pipeline still for growth. Again, we have north of 30 million in the bank. We've been very successful in our acquisitions. Actually, a lot of times when we acquire a company now, they're asking for stock instead of cash because they're sharing the vision with the upside and growing with the team. So we like that. We like that they're aligned with us, with our vision for growth. And so we are not done by any means. We're just starting.
I guess what I was asking is not so much the acquisitions, but in terms of the overall picture. Like you have the pharmacy side, you have the mental health, so are you what other areas, or would you add besides, like what other areas would you add?
I'd rather not kind of elaborate too much
Okay.
on, I mean, it's a very competitive space, so we got to be careful kind of what we say as well. But I think you can kind of get the idea a lot of times when you see what I'm talking about in terms of that person with diabetes and a wound on their leg. It doesn't just need wound care on their leg, right? They need probably compression stockings. They need to see a dietitian. They need to see endocrinologist for their insulin. They need to see, probably a cardiologist. I mean, the whole ecosystem basically is what you need. The platform side of it, in terms of the technology, we are very excited about what we have, and we'll be turning on more and more features, including some of the AI products we have and so on. And so it is something that you're going to see further expansion on and what we do. But I think you'll be surprised on other things that just make sense and fit into what we're talking about. So I would just say, hold on and watch, and hopefully you grow with us.
We got a bunch of questions coming in. That's really what today is all about. It's audience questions. So bottom line is, I guess people, it seems like definitely investors seem to like the fact that your acquisitions want to take stock.
That's important. But just to point a little bit more about that is that if I'm acquiring, let's say clinic, if I'm acquiring a clinic and they're asking for cash, that's a big warning flag, right? Because if you're buying a clinic and you're cashing them out, what's their incentive to stay there and grow and continue to operate and expand services and so on? Really, they're not aligned with you. So the fact that people, companies that we've been acquiring are aligned with us is extremely, extremely important part of our mission statement. Yeah.
Okay. Spence has a question. Can you see that? If a physician has a contract with an EMR provider.
Right. So EMRs, electronic medical records, there's a bunch of different ones out there. Contracts tend to run about a year or so. There are ways of getting out of them if they had to. We are cloud-based, so he asked about hardware support. There is no such thing as hardware, really. I mean, it's just anybody's computer connecting to our cloud-based electronic medical records. So really, we don't need to provide any on-site hardware support. We do have tech companies that we work with that can provide, let's say if some clinic wants to have more secure routers and computers and their network and so on, we definitely can provide help with that with third-party vendors that we work with. But because we're cloud-based, it doesn't require much at all.
Okay, and Spencer's asking, are you going to link to hospitals and pharmacies?
Stay tuned.
Okay, but you have a pharmacy already, right?
We own 2 pharmacies, and we have partnerships with some major pharmacy brands, including Save On Foods and Pure Pharmacy and so
on. Okay, I guess you will be making acquisitions, right?
Yeah, many more, yeah.
Okay, update on the U.S. Acquisitions.
Again, got to be careful what I say, but I think we gave some guidance before, so hopefully we'll see some closure on that LOI within the next couple of weeks here, and at that time we'll be able to elaborate more. I've kind of given you the mission statement on the U.S. expansion. U.S. is a little bit different than Canada in the sense that we are focusing really on the chronic disease footprint and in underserviced areas. We're not trying to compete with Teladoc in Los Angeles, for instance, right? We're talking about services that are in our areas that don't have doctors that are ripe for disruption with telehealth. So that one patient, or the 1,000 patients in a remote community that have diabetes and heart disease, like I said before, you can provide on-site nursing care for their wounds, but then connect them to all the specialties in the major cities, and then triage them so that if they do need to go to those cities, you can, but everybody's within your platform. So it's kind of like the hub and spoke model in these underserviced areas. And the reason that's important, if you never saw my last stream, is that the CDC mentions that $3.5 trillion spent in healthcare in the US, 90% of it goes towards patients with chronic disease, right? So it's the high burden patients that you're going after. We're not looking to do the virtual episodic sniffles, really.
So you're not competing with, one med. That's a totally different market.
Kind of. I mean, they're going to more. That's kind of the model we have in Canada, for sure. But in the States, we're not looking to have thousands of concierge type of clinics that are providing.
You're taking the opposite approach. You're going after the underserved markets.
We're going after the underserviced, high burden areas because that's where all the money is being spent by the healthcare system. But that's where the most need is needed as well. That's where we can make the most impact. So, like I said, 90% of the money is being spent on these patients that have chronic disease.
Okay, so that's a key differentiator. Okay, so. Spence, I like he's numbering his questions. This is the 4th question. Do you have support from the Canadian government for virtual medicine?
Yeah, I can't elaborate anymore on anything that we haven't publicly announced so far, but we will be announcing things along the way with respect to things like that.
Okay. Brendan asking about Well Health.
I'm not sure what the question was again. Sorry.
What leverage do you have or will have to Well Health?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the question is really, but what I would say to anybody is that, because it's one of the biggest questions we always get, is how do you compare yourself to Well Health and so on. Well Health is an extremely, there you go. It is an extremely attractive, an incredible success story. Like I said, Hamid, the CEO, is well proven in the space. He's now built $1 billion company in a very short period of time. And that's great. And we should encourage it in Canada, really. And like I said, when I said before, I really mean it, that, be invested in the space. I wish you would invest in my company, in our company. But there are going to be more than one company in the space. It'll consolidate eventually, for sure. You're going to see continued consolidation with other companies coming in and acquiring companies like ours and Well and so on. But it's different. I mean, they're a little bit different. They're going to kind of the same maybe endpoint, but in a different pathway, let's say. So I won't go through the whole big areas of differentiation again, because I think I've said this on every single presentation so far. But just to say that they're it's an extremely attractive company as well to look at.
Okay, interesting question. Can you talk about the future of AI in your business?
Yeah, so we have two AI products. One we developed with IBM Watson. We own the IP 100%, and that's a virtual medical office assistant that we'll be turning on here in the next couple of quarters. And so that'll be fully integrated into the patient portal, where a patient can go in and start chatting with the AI bot and be able to do anything you'd like to do that you typically would do with the clerk or the medical office assistant at the front desk. So from changing appointments to giving directions or hours of operation or are my labs in, whatever it is, you can train it to do all those kind of clerical things. So that's going to be turned on over the next couple of quarters. And then we also have an AI virtual nurse, where it asks the questions before you see the doctor, and it has the ability to triage you, so that if you need to be seen by emergency quickly, instead of waiting for the appointment, it'll tell you to do that. But more importantly, they'll take that history and put it in the chart for the doctor, so that when the doctor sees you, they have a full history, they have a differential diagnosis, they have lab tests that they should run, and they even have treatment options based on current guidelines before you even said hi. So you think about the efficiency of the fact of the doctor now being 1,000 kilometers or 1,000 miles away and seeing you, but also on top of that, having somebody actually taking the whole history before they see you is amazing. I mean, that makes it so that the doctor can really spend quality time seeing you and talking to you and helping you, instead of trying to figure out why you're there.
Yeah, no, it's a game changer. We get a question from Lawrence. I guess people have asked this before. What are you doing about expanding to the other provinces? I guess the East Coast.
Right.
Health Minister response.
Yeah, there's certain protocols depending on which provinces you go into. We've announced BC and Ontario so far. We've said it in previous discussions that we will be expanding to other provinces, including Alberta and Saskatchewan and Quebec and so on, and pretty much every province over this next year here. So I think just say hold on, and you'll see us kind of grow and expand and turn on. The great thing about our platform is it's ready. I can turn on in every province right now if I wanted to. The platform is built out. It's just making sure that you can provide good service when you do turn it on, and that's really all we're waiting for.
Okay, here's a great question. Are you investing in clinics, companies that are accretive for EPS? And secondly, do you have an estimation of when the company will have positive EPS?
Sure. It's always helpful if they are cash flow positive or EBITDA positive already. And so that makes it helpful. It makes it more expensive often. But when we bring in our platform and our hybrid model to those clinics, we can turn a clinic that's maybe break even into a cash flow positive clinic, quite quickly. And so we don't only look at clinics that are cash flow positive. We look at everything else as well. We look at revenue, we look at number of providers, we look at number of patients, we look at what EMR they're already having, the efficiencies we can get, geography of where they are. You have to remember what we're building, right? And we're building something where you as a patient can have the same quality of care wherever you are in Canada under our brand, right? So whether you need to be seen in person, the 10% of the time or 20% of the time, or you need to be seen virtually, you can do that. And you have that whole team-based approach. So that's what we're building. And in terms of when we're going to be cash flow positive, I mean, it's a question we get a lot in the Canadian side. We tend to get the opposite on the US side. It's more of, why even talking about EBITDA and cash flow? Just talk about growth, how fast you're growing, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, they want Amazon. I mean, American investors don't want
they want what we do. I mean, we can stop growing and be cash flow positive right now, but that's not really what it is. It's about a land grab. We're well funded. We have over 30 million in the bank, and it's about becoming the next, multi-billion-dollar company, instead of just being happy on being cash flow positive and with a $200 million company.
Yeah, I mean, this is. I think they were asking Amazon when they were going to be.
Google and Amazon and Facebook, right. You're going to turn that on. Yeah.
Here's a question: is there going to be a second wave? I mean, what's your take on that? There's just
Yeah, no, 100%. So there's a reason that we were not spending a ton of money on direct consumer marketing during the summer. So if you notice now, you'll see a lot of ads that we just turned on. So you'll see a lot of TV ads, radio ads, internet ads in Facebook and Google ads and so on. So we are spending some money on direct consumer marketing now. for a couple of reasons. One is increased eyeballs as potential patients that download the app and start using it and seeing doctors, but also as potential investors as well. We get dual benefit whenever we run these ads, right? It's one of the very few companies that you can invest in. You can use the product and you can invest in Canada or North America, which is really, sometimes unique, right? It's not something you can always do. And so that we are going to be doing that. Second wave, absolutely. You're already seeing it now with back to school. First day of school was yesterday or whatever in a lot of places, and you're starting to see the spikes of the numbers. And we're already seeing, obviously, an increase in numbers being seen virtually again, just like we did before. As the weather gets colder, people are more indoors. And then you got the other things that come with it as well when you're indoors, whether it's the sinus infections or the flu season that hopefully will be a little bit lighter this year. Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to see patients again being very hesitant to go to the walk-in clinics and the clinics unless they have to. They want to be able to triage first virtually before to see if they really need to go into a clinic or a hospital. So you're definitely going to see the numbers going up.
Okay. Konstantinos asking, Healthcare Network of America's 24 million patients. Possible acquisition?
Yeah, so what he's referring to is remember what I mentioned is that whenever we acquire a company, we're buying the team, we're bringing the team on, and Dr. Rowe is one of the team leaders in the US acquisition that we made. And he runs Doctors of America, I think, whatever, where he's been very successful in advocating and bringing in huge networks of doctors and helping them and so on. And really that's what we're anticipating, is that he'll be able to really grow our business in the US and draw from his relationships right across the US and bring in doctors and specialists and providers into our platform.
Okay. Spence coming in with question number 5. What are your plans to continue expansion with Safe Foods?
I mean Save On Foods. Yeah.
Save On.
Yeah. We'll have updates soon.
Okay. Any other stores? Walmart, Loblaws?
Yeah, there's many other chains as well. So we'll have updates along the way. One thing to just point out is that all pharmacies, as I mentioned earlier, are terrified of Amazon, right? So Amazon is coming into this space. They've launched Amazon Pharmacy now in North America. They will be doing delivery and fulfillment and so on. And so all these pharmacy banners with brick and mortar need to come up to the e-commerce aspect and fulfillment for their patients. And so we have a ton of interest from all banners, and we'll have updates along the way.
Yes. Okay. So we got a bunch of questions that came. I gotta scroll back. Oh my God, we had like 50 questions. Well, I didn't even see these. Here we go. Wow. Hang on 1 second. Let me just scroll back up. Okay. Okay. Did I ask you this one yet about the kiosks?
We are expanding across the country, and we'll have updates on that. And we're not going to talk about on this. I can't disclose any names right now. Okay.
Oh, here's an interesting question. Are you selling data, for any kind of analytics?
All right, I gotcha.
Drug development?
Yeah. No, we're not selling any data. So our belief has always been that your data as a patient belongs to you, and you have to always have control of that data. So it may be sitting on a doctor's computer or a cloud or something, but it really belongs to you. So we don't believe in selling that data to any third party ever without your permission, and we haven't gone down that route at all. Now, having said that, in the future, what do I see in 5 years or whatever? I see a situation where you as a patient is empowered, and you actually may make money by providing anonymous data, where you can opt in to studies now. These studies saying, yeah, I'll opt in, take away any identifying data, and guess what? Now you're one of millions of patients with a certain disease on a certain medication compared to millions of patients with a certain disease on a different medication. And you can do these studies anonymously, and you actually get compensated for it without you having to do anything. So actually empowering patients to own their data and get rewarded for their data, that's kind of the future of healthcare studies and stuff for sure.
Okay, that's actually very interesting. Is anybody doing that now?
They're trying. They're trying, but the problem is you need access to that data, and we own it, right? So, in CloudMD, we own an EMR company. We have about 3 million patient charts in our system, very rich data. So it's on our servers, but we don't give it to anybody.
Okay. But you're saying, so you're saying that essentially, like a year from now, whatever it is, you can go back to those 3 million people and say to them, hey, do you guys want to, make money with your data?
Yeah.
I mean, your name is not going to be there. It's going to be anonymous.
Nothing identifiable. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much can they pay?
Yeah. So, do you want to make some money being part of a study? And we do that now. Traditionally, there's studies going on in universities and hospitals all the time, and they canvass doctors' offices saying, can you put these flyers up in the waiting room and see if anybody wants to be part of this study? And then you have to take a day off of work and cross town and sit in their hospital waiting room to be part of these studies. It's the same idea, but now you can do it from the comfort of your home, doing nothing but opting in and out kind of whenever you want.
You're just giving data. You're not taking any experimental drug.
You might be already on that drug already.
Okay.
Right? They just want to compare how your outcomes are compared to another one on a different medication or something. So yeah, that's kind of the future and I'm excited about that because that's going to provide much better outcomes. Because a lot of these studies fail because they're not great in drawing patients in from a very diverse network. They tend to focus on, again, you're seeing this now with the COVID vaccine, they tend to focus on kind of the middle-aged white crowd, basically, and then they're like, why isn't it working in the minorities or in this population or in the females or whatever? It's because you never tested it, in that group. So being able to see real life data in real time, in the future is going to provide much better outcomes for these studies.
Interesting. I understand like a lot of drugs are actually in drug development. They're not really tested on women, right? And it's a completely different,
They don't test it on women. They don't test it on children.
Right.
They don't test it a lot of times on minorities. And so, yeah, and then there's no surprise on what happens after the fact, right?
Interesting. So this is an area which really you haven't. This hasn't really been talked about. This type of data, this analytics. I don't know. Maybe this is a little bit too early, but what kind of numbers can that type of business generate? Let's say you have 3 million records now. Let's say you have 5 million records a year from now when you get into this. What kind of
you can make millions of dollars.
Profit, basically.
Yeah, you can make millions of dollars as a company with almost all margin, right? Because it doesn't require almost anything in terms of operations. So the margins are quite high. So you'll see it on our presentation as one of the verticals, like on the 4th or 5th vertical in terms of partnerships, because we already have that platform, we already have that database, and just companies out there are looking for partnerships, right? So these partnerships will come in time where it's, again, 90% margins for us. So there is opportunity. It's just not the time for that right now. But there definitely is opportunity, and not just on that one example I gave you, on many other examples as well.
Okay, interesting. It's almost like Tesla. They're saying Tesla is really not a car company; it's really a data company because they're getting all this data on roads. This is what I heard from a guy who's inside of Tesla. I know that's the thing. Okay, so question: what is your biggest obstacle right now?
That's a great question, and that keeps changing depending, right? So it's not financing risk anymore. Like I said, we're incredibly well funded. It's not opportunity risk because, like I said, all the barriers to entry and the barriers for adoption are gone because of COVID. We're running at this point, and it's a bit of a land grab. It really is inflation. So what happens is that it's getting more and more expensive to acquire the assets that we want, and so we're sometimes competing with companies that are being bid by other companies or that are going public themselves. Having said that, we've been very successful in these acquisitions, believing in us and joining us as a team member. So we've been, I think, very successful that way. We'll continue, but that would be probably our biggest obstacle.
We get this a lot. Are you going to go onto the full TSX?
Yeah. So the answer is, the answer is yes. At some point, we will uplist, TSX, NASDAQ, and so on. We'll give updates to the market along the way as we kind of approach those criteria and what we're looking for. But we'll update the market. It's about, expanding our investor base. And you can see that with our volume right now. It's been doing very well. I think we trade over 100 million shares in the last, or 120 million or something last month or something ridiculous. So we're definitely shifting our investor base, getting a much wider audience, getting a lot more institutions involved as well. And as we do that, and as we become a bigger company, we want to graduate to bigger indices.
Okay. Mark asking, I guess, a question about preventative. Are you going to focus on preventative medicine? Is that right?
Yeah, great question, Mark. Stay tuned. But I think we have really smart investors, and they're getting it, right? Like, they understand kind of where this is going and the potentials, and I think they're starting to kind of take a few steps ahead and figuring out where we're going.
Okay, we got Spence coming in with question 6, and I think question 7 is right behind it. Do you see this far? Are you doing anything with grocery stores?
Yeah, I can't talk about any other banners right now than what we have announced so far. All I can say again is that we have a lot of interest because of what's happening in the space and what's happening with Amazon and so on. So again, stay tuned, and you'll see further updates on that space and other ways of delivering that to those customers as well.
Spence.
Question again?
Yeah. Number 8.
Yeah. No, great question again. Yeah, I mean, if you think mental health was a problem before COVID, it is incredible. It's going to be an incredible driver right now. The numbers are growing and expanding, and because of what's happening, unfortunately, there's more and more situations of mental health disease, and so you can't separate, as I mentioned earlier, you can't separate the physical from the mental. We have to look at as patients as being whole people. And, universities are a little bit unique in the sense that you're throwing these kids into the world for the very first time in a very stressful location, very stressful situation without the family support maybe they had at home. And there's very high rates of mental health disease and issues on campuses. So absolutely. And they're very tech savvy, and they respond very well to telehealth and mental health, basically. They really like that idea. They're really comfortable with that technology and that delivery. And like I said before, it's been a lifesaver. And I mean like a real lifesaver in terms of telemedicine for mental health, because these same kids that go to school are not comfortable going to a waiting room with people sitting around them, and then going to a smaller room when they're already anxious and claustrophobic, and then being fast tracked out of that room and not really getting the help they need. They feel more comfortable in their home, in their room, spending time talking to counselors or their doctor or the specialist or the psychiatrist. And so it's been a 100% lifesaver, and really the driver for telehealth going forward after COVID. Okay.
Yeah, it seems like younger people are more into the mental health than it used to be. It's like the new thing
anymore. Yeah, it's not the same stigma as before, and I like the fact that everybody's talking about it, and it's not negative to say that you have mental health disease or issues or whatever. It's encouraged to talk about it. You get good support now. You're not ostracized like you used to, and that's it's a great thing. It's just one more thing that's really I'm looking forward to is the ability for anybody to talk openly about these things.
Okay. Are you familiar with OnTrack?
No.
No. Okay. Canadian universities. Let's see. Okay. Quebec.
Quebec. My second biggest question probably is Quebec. Yes, I mean Quebec at some point. I couldn't tell you exactly when. Maybe 2020, maybe 2021, but definitely it's on our radar. As one of the biggest provinces here in Canada.
Are you offering your platform as a service as well, or
yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, we have the B2B side of us that we grow. That's growing at over 30% year over year already. We provide that platform to doctors and practitioners to provide the same kind of comprehensive service to their own patients as well.
Okay. Can you talk about the app? Ratings have been growing 25% weekly.
Yeah, I mentioned kind of the promotion that we just turned on. So you're going to see a lot more ads, whether you like it or not. So you'll be on Google or Facebook or watching TV or listening to the radio, and you definitely will see a lot more about CloudMD. I think you're already starting to see quite a bit. And so, like I said, it has a dual purpose. Number one is to drive more people to the app and download and use, but also those are eyeballs for the in the company as a whole as well as an investment.
Okay, Spence, coming with number 9.
Wow.
You are the Elon Musk of telehealth.
I wish. Elon Musk got a lot of flack for a long time, right? Where people were saying, you're crazy, this is not happening. And he's doing the same thing now in space and everything else. You sometimes need people to disrupt the status quo. And that's what we've been doing for a long time. People think this is a COVID play. We've been talking about this for years. I mean, we were doing telehealth for 7-8 years. I actually started telehealth in kiosks and so on, even like 5 years ago. So this is something we've been doing for a long time. COVID brought it to forefront and really sped everything along. But you need to take risks. You need to say, this is where we're going, whether anybody likes it or not. This is where we're heading, and this is better for everybody. And hopefully you have enough cash and the right team to get you there. And I think we have enough cash, and I think we're getting a great team to get us there as well. So we're extremely excited.
Yeah, I think you mentioned COVID, but Cloud is not like one of these COVID stocks. It came out of the woodwork. I mean, even when the COVID thing goes away, it's definitely a boost, but it's like it's just a small part of the big picture. And a year from now, it's not even going to.
Well, a year from now, COVID's still going to be an issue, but we haven't mentioned COVID once in our deck ever. So if you look at our presentation,
I guess that's what I was referring to, because there's some companies that hype the COVID.
Oh, yeah, I know they're the shiny new objects that saying we're COVID testing or whatever, and good luck on a sustainable business plan after that. We've never talked about it. We've never had it except saying that it sped up everything for us, and the fact that we already had our platform and an infrastructure built out, it just sped it up. I mean, one of the big things I always point to is when COVID hit, and doctors were closing their physical doors, not like any of our clinics across the country that use our software had to stop seeing patients. They literally could, close their physical door and open up their virtual door and continue seeing patients. So they had no downtime, which is really important.
Okay, we got, let's see, questions coming in. What percentage, we've asked this before, what's insider ownership percentage?
It keeps changing because of the financings we're doing. Before this last financing, I think between insiders, friends, and family, and kind of core group that has been financing it at every round, I think we were around 30 to 40%. With this latest financing, I would have to get recalculated.
Workplace PAE? I don't understand. We don't know.
I don't know what that is.
Constantinos. Yeah. If you can explain that, I guess. Oh, he's asking, is that link? Is PAE? Is there a link to CloudMD?
I'm not sure what PAE is. Do you know what that is?
I have no idea. No. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we got a lot of people basically saying, maybe you guys should merge with Well Health. There's multiple comments saying that this is
great company, and I said like before, great leader. The space is definitely consolidating over time. I can't comment to one way or another. We haven't had those discussions, and at some point, does it make sense? We'll have to see.
Okay. Do you see this WebMD apps?
Mm-hmm.
As a
not really. I'm not sure what WebMD has to do with telehealth, but Maple and Akira are more virtual episodic care. So the virtual episodic care that I talked about before is not really the sustainable model that we're looking for. We're not looking for the virtual walk-in model. We're looking for that full ecosystem that captures everything that you need, both as a footprint and vertically across North America. And so really that's what we're going after. Oh yeah, employee assistance program. Yeah. So I mean, absolutely. That's a great question. If you look between the lines of our, Karen joining us today, and our Snap Clarity and our Refunction acquisitions, you can kind of see where we're heading there for sure.
Okay. Oh, you know what? Actually, I did have a chance to to get into that. With Karen, what is Karen Adams, Chief Innovation Officer? Exactly what is going to be her role? And can you tell our audience a little bit more about her background, because I think it could be interesting for what you're doing going forward.
Yeah, I think we highlighted a lot in the press release there in terms of her background, but she's been very successful in the space of again, mental health and dealing with insurance companies and corporations. A lot of that stuff that again, we've been dealing a lot on the public side. Our app is free. It's free to see patients. It's free to see a doctor in those provinces we operate. Even our brick and mortar, it's free to see the doctor or the specialist or the and so on within that system. But as you move forward, what you're going to see is corporations and insurance companies understanding that when their clients get sick or hurt, it affects their business. And so they tend to spend money on these vendors that can provide better holistic care to their customers or their workers. And so that's what we're referring to basically. So when Karen comes on board, she has extremely an incredible resume of dealing with huge Fortune 500 companies and insurance companies, and definitely in the mental health space as well. So she's going to lead that whole expansion into that space.
Okay, Jomi, have you contacted all health authorities in BC about your offerings?
Like I said, post-COVID, every province is in play. And we already have the platform. We can turn on every province tomorrow if we wanted to, but we want to make sure the infrastructure is there. So just continue watching for announcements on those on that infrastructure basically, and you'll get an idea of when that province will launch.
Okay.
I'm hoping, Lawrence, every province within the next 12 months. So this should be a Canada-wide play in terms of clinics and telehealth. And then in the States, definitely a North American play when you start talking about doctors using our services as a platform, but us also taking care of those, like I said, high burden chronic disease situations in certain areas like the southeast of the US and so on. We're not going to be competing with Teladoc, for the episodic sniffles. That's not really what we're going after. That's a losing proposition. We're going after really the high margin, high revenue, smaller footprints in certain areas and being leaders in those niches.
Okay. I think his second part two of his question was, could a doctor with his own clinic triage patients?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where we get our SaaS revenue from right now. So they can sign on and use our EMR that has the patient portal, connected to it, and even a billing solution as well. So we have probably the best product out there right now for doctors. The future, like I said before, is for doctors not to worry about running businesses. It's about how do they get online, how do they continue seeing their patients without having to worry about technology or telling patients to download this and do this. It should be just one seamless platform, whether they're seeing patients in person or virtually, and we provide that one integrated, intuitive platform.
Okay. Okay. Spence coming in with question number 10. COVID pulled the industry ahead by 10 years. So we're 10 years forward in the future. Amwell, Google, how will that impact your business model in Canada? And do you see?
Yeah. More eyeballs. I mean, it's not just Google and Amwell. I mean, Teladoc is buying a lot of companies out there right now, whether it's, joining Livongo or buying In Touch in Canada for $600 million a few months ago. You're going to see continued consolidation and more money being put into space. So the fact that Google is spending $100 million on the IPO for Amwell, that's great. It brings more eyeballs to the space. And when they IPO, I'm sure it's going to be a hot IPO. So that just brings more attention to something, like I said before, where we're at the very beginning of that hockey stick. Like, you think this is hot right now, and you think about kind of where this is going. We're talking about an industry that is almost $4 trillion in North America, that has gone from almost paper-based or very limited digital to almost all digital and a lot virtual in the next few years. That's massive. I mean, in Canada here, we're doing, I think, 0.15% virtual care before COVID, and in the States, it was probably less than 10 or 20%. Some places were a little bit higher. But you think about just the whole shift of that whole industry, it's not going to be just one company, and it will be a transformational shift in a massive industry that's is ripe for disruption right now.
Okay. It's interesting. Well, after the financing, how many shares do you have fully diluted?
I'll have to ask Julia to get that for you. Okay. I'm not really sure right now.
Okay. But the market cap,
a lot of warrants being exercised right now too, and so on.
So the market cap is what? It's a couple $100 million right now, basically.
I think less than 200 million. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, really, like when you think about what's kind of like what's happening, where you have Google kind of, I mean, right. I mean, this, I know people are got to be thinking like, could an Amazon at some point say, okay, we got to be in this area here? It's just like what they did with, Whole Foods. They're getting into everything.
They already are.
Frontier.
Yeah, they already are doing that, right? They already moved into the space, and they're moving in further into the space for sure. Like I said, they bought Health Navigator for a reason. They launched Amazon Care for a reason, and they launched Amazon Pharmacy in North America for a reason with the acquisition of PillPack a few years ago. So they are doing that. They know that the future is not just sending you packages of electronics or chargers. It's also having you see a doctor and getting your groceries and prescriptions sent to you as well. So
every aspect, yeah.
Every aspect, top shop, yeah.
So it's interesting. You know, really, like, I mean, ultimately, like, CloudMD really, it could be at some point an acquisition for one of these, mega, basically $1 trillion company. I mean, for them to write a check for, $1 billion, $2 billion is not a big deal.
No, I'm not going to talk about numbers and stuff, but yeah,
not much.
I mean, again, whether you're a Canadian investor or American investor, it's a little bit of a different mindset. Here in Canada, you don't understand this, Mark, but we tend to gobble our own a lot way too soon. So you don't see a lot of these multi-billion-dollar leaders in the space because they get gobbled up really quickly by the American companies before they ever get to that size. Shopify is a different matter. But typically, you don't get these huge leaders because they get acquired a lot quicker. The multiples given to American companies are definitely much higher than Canadian companies. Another reason they want to get greater exposure in the US. And I would say north of 75% of all my meetings right now are with US-based investors.
Okay, here we go. Spence, number 11 question. If you want to address that, if Canada shifts to 20% telehealth from
yeah, no, it won't be a shift outside of doctors' offices, but you're going to see fewer. So what's going to happen, Spence, is that you're going to get rid of a lot of the mom and pop clinics where there's one clinic on every corner. You're going to see clinics where they're all working together. So these hybrid clinics like we have, where again, in that same footprint, you might have 10 or 12 doctors and specialists and counselors and physios and everybody working together in a small footprint. And then that one platform providing you virtual care as well. You will only go to a clinic if you have to physically be seen and touched, and they'll tell you when to come to the clinic. You will not go and take a day off of work and sit there for a couple hours and the doctor doesn't know why you're there. You're going to be there only because you need to be there. Otherwise, you're going to be seen from the comfort of your home or your work or whatever. So there's going to be a lot of triaging going forward virtually before you ever get seen. And that's going to make it much more efficient, much better outcomes. And that's what you're going to see for sure.
Okay, we got a few more questions. I don't know if you have to go. Maybe we should wrap up here.
A couple more minutes, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do a few more. U.S. expansion, California, Florida.
Again, we're not going to go into too much in terms of where we're expanding, but just to say that we're focusing really on underserviced areas. There's really no need to go to areas where there's patients that have easy access to doctors. The whole point of this is to give them a telehealth solution where they now can have access to specialists and doctors and healthcare practitioners where they typically wouldn't have before. It's the same amount of money, but it's actually better margins.
What's the plan to get more downloads of the app and usage?
Yeah, like I said, we spent a lot of money recently, just turned on just a few days ago, a lot of marketing. You'll see a ton of ads. You're going to get tired of the ads soon, the CloudMD ads. I'm sure you're going to see them everywhere.
Okay. Have anything? Any more news? Can you put out more news today? Dr. Hamza, let's wrap up. Two last questions. One is, what kind of news flow can we expect over the next, let's call it, again, our audience is short-term oriented. They want to know, what are you going to do in the next, let's say, 6 to 12 weeks, next couple of months? What kind of news flow can we expect going forward?
I think everything I just mentioned, that we have an incredibly strong pipeline of acquisitions that we're working on expansion, on various different parts of our business that I've kind of hinted to over time that we can start executing on. Everybody's back to school now. So I think you're going to, we try not to waste too much during the summer when everybody's on vacation. But I think there should be a lot of good things happening.
We actually have long-term investors in the audience.
That's good.
A few.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. Our favorite is, in your opinion, top 3 reasons why investors should consider CloudMD stock today.
There's not a lot of companies in this space, and this is a massive transformational period, inflection point in a massive space. Basically, it's an industry that is just shifting again, like I said, from 100% paper, brick and mortar to eventually probably 70-80% virtual, over time. So you think about the resources and the money involved in that, and how very few players are in the space right now. So I think if I'll give you that one reason alone, honestly. Actually, I'll give you 2 reasons. One, and the second one is we're incredibly well funded. We don't have the financing risk. We can now really execute and continue to execute without worry about running out of money or not having enough to do what we want to do.
To recap, you have you have about 30 million plus in the bank.
$30 million, yeah.
Okay, that's a good place to be right now. People are nervous. Stocks are coming down. There's a little volatility, so it's good to be well funded. Okay, with that said, Dr. Hamza, I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You back on our live stream in a couple of weeks, and thank you everybody in our audience for joining us. We'll see you again on the next live stream.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.